Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It is Saturday, April 12th. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, I thought we'd talk about today is getting outside your comfort zone and where real growth begins, right? So, stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, if you didn't already know. And yes, this is the weekend. This is Saturday, April 12th of 2025. So, what are we talking about today? I'm guilty of this all too often. And that's getting in my comfort zone. And what do I mean by that? I mean, I know exactly what's going on, I know what I'm doing, there's no surprises, it's just kind of floating through life, right? But where does that really get us? For some, I mean, it may be okay, but if you're looking for growth, expanding the business, expanding your relationships with other people, we need to step outside that comfort zone and take on new things. See, one thing I've always been is challenge based. I love challenges, and that is what's going to define me. If anything should go on my headstone, it would. He never turned down a challenge. The good, bad, and the ugly, right? But when it comes to challenges, I'm not talking about risking it all, because I don't believe in that either. Because if you risk it all and it doesn't work out, what's left? You've already spent yourself, right? No, it's about taking and trying new things, whether it be going to a different restaurant or maybe trying a food that you've never tried before to see if it's something you like. You may find out you love it. It may be just how you did when you first got into working on stuff with your hands. Maybe it was that first chainsaw or that first engine rebuild. There was always a first, right? And I find this happens more as we get older than when we're younger. When we're younger, we're just sucking it all in, right? But as we get older, we get set in our ways. And what do I mean by set in our ways? I mean, we try to do the same thing, same in, same out. Get up at the same time in the morning, have the same breakfast, if we have breakfast. Go to work, have almost the same lunch. And then we come home, and then we do the same things. We don't want anything to disrupt our rhythm. And heaven forbid if something comes up, it's like the end of the world, right? If something comes up and you're not able to do what you normally do. But that's not good either, right? Because you're not trying new things. You're not growth. You're not growing. You're never too old to grow. See, that's what I see with a lot of people. They get to a certain age and they're content, they're happy, that's fine. But what I find is most of them aren't content. They've reached what they figure is the best it's ever going to be, so let's go with it instead of trying something new that could end up being one of the best moves they've done. It could be deciding on starting that new business that you always wanted to, or taking on a new aspect to the business, or maybe changing jobs. See, the one thing I can tell you is time is limited. And what do I mean by that? I mean, the amount of time I'm taking doing this video, I can never get it back, right? So if I understand that whatever time I have is limited, then I want to make sure I'm doing it in the right areas and not just wasting that time either, right? Because we all know about wasting time on stuff. It's all in our mindset of how we look at things. We need to stop being fearful of any change, because that change may be just what we need, whether it be in a relationship with someone or whether it be in the business, changing something up, because it could be you're not getting enough customers. But if you continue to do the same thing day in, day out, is that going to guarantee more customers? Most chances are no. If anything, you're going to lose customers because you're not aggressively going after anything new. But Joe Schmo down the road, he is taking chances and understands that time is limited and he needs to get as much customers as he can. So he's trying new things. And your old customers will gravitate towards him because he's new, he's challenging, he wants their business, and he's letting them know on a daily basis that he wants their business. Whereas you have become just content in what you have, and if you lose a customer, oh well. The best way I can equate that is what worked in our industry 30 years ago definitely doesn't work today, right? And if we're still doing the same things that we did 30 years ago, good chances are we got left in the dust. Because our industry has changed a lot. Just simply in labor intensive work. And I can remember where we were doing a lot of engine rebuilds because it was cheaper to get a new short block, the lower half, and then put all the rest of the parts on top, adding a piston, connecting rod, everything like that. Then it was to step out and get a new one. So a lot of my customers opted to go with the rebuild from the ground up. That way they had a brand new engine, new and improved, on their piece of equipment. Fast forward to today, we haven't done an engine rebuild now in almost 4 years. None. And why is that? Because the customers aren't willing to pay that kind of money. The customer knows that they can go right to Harbor Freight or TeamU or where have you and get a replacement engine for cheaper than what your labor bill is. And that's the direction we've had to go with our customers is, okay, you're not willing to spend the money on having an engine rebuild. What about a Harbor Freight Predator engine instead? Here's the actual cost. If you want to go pick it up, bring it to us. Even though we've lost that money for labor, we've had to make it up in more services, more customers. And we talked about how important it is to take care of your regulars as well as your new ones, right? And that's what we talked about the last couple of days. And that's so important. So we've had to change our focus from, okay, people aren't willing to pay to have it rebuilt because of the cost. Let's get into parts. And parts had a good run. I had a good run with parts. But then that market kind of got saturated, right? And now, if you were sitting on any amount of parts, you're screwed because everybody, even your customers, are now going to Amazon or eBay and ordering that part for a fraction of what you're paying wholesale. Yes, it's an aftermarket. It's a Chinese knockoff. But most of my customers don't care as long as it works and they can get it cheaply. There for a while, it felt like being stung a number of times because I can remember buying home-like carburetors for chainsaws that was setting me back $50, $60. And then list on it was over $100. But for $9.95 on eBay with free shipping, I could get that same carburetor with gaskets, with a fuel filter, fuel lines, an air filter. You see where I'm going with this? So my customers started thinking that I was taking advantage of that, when in fact, I wasn't. But it did make me, at that point in time, have a realization of how much are these manufacturers getting these parts for? And how much are they marked up? Who's making all the money on it? Because it wasn't us. I still got some of those fancy $60, $70 carburetors in stock that only the purist would ever buy. And that's after I deeply discount them, right? Because a lot of guys aren't keeping the old stuff. I mean, you can get a brand new 42cc chainsaw off Temu for under $60. I can't even buy a carburetor for a steel OEM for that kind of money. So it takes us back to our comfort level. Is we need to make sure that we're able to step outside that comfort level and try on new things. If it's not working, we need to change. And as business people, we also need to be able to look down in the future and get kind of a read of what direction it's going. I saw the writing on the wall early on when I started seeing some of these aftermarkets, the Chinese parts showing up on the venues. And at the time, the venues didn't want them on there, which was good for us. But then they started allowing a couple here, a couple there. And then the Chinese were misrepresenting themselves as U.S. citizens selling stuff here in the U.S. And they were listing a port of entry. I stopped stocking. I started selling. And I sold until I got right down to a minimum inventory to still be able to ship quickly and so forth. But had I kept the $200,000 and $300,000 in inventory, I'd have been stuck. Not unless I wanted to keep it for 20, 30 years and then sell it as new old stock as, not available anymore. And that's the other thing we ran into was parts, right? Trying to get parts for customers, and now you can't get them anymore. So how do you change that up? You go online, you try to find sellers like myself that are selling new old stock that you can fix stuff for the customer or get it for them. Again, you have to be willing to change. But what I'm trying to get across is the way we did business 20 years ago is totally different than what we're doing today. If we try to continue doing what we were doing 20 years ago, we become dinosaurs. And I see a lot of you guys that have shops that are older that have become dinosaurs. They have said, we're not changing. We're done. We're not looking at any of the battery operated stuff. We're unwilling to order Chinese crap off the venues to fix customers' machines. We're still losing customers right and left because we fixed their chainsaw with a brand new carburetor that we paid $60 for, and then they get it home and they look online and find out they could have had a whole carburetor with all these other new parts for $10, free shipping. They're moving on because they feel like you took advantage of them when you really didn't, right? That's what I mean. You need to get outside that comfort zone of doing the things that you used to do that are no longer working today. So I'm going to start wrapping this up. In the comments, what have you been doing to keep yourself outside that comfort level of trying to move into new territories? Because it is. If you're a dinosaur and you decide that you're going to be set in your ways, and I see a lot of old people that have shops, and I'm kind of old people, but I'm still willing to accept new challenges, is They're finding out nobody wants their shops or their businesses. The real estate's the only thing that has value, and they just kind of fade out into the sunset of having a place where a bunch of other old guys get together and have coffee and hurrah. But what are you doing to stay current? What are you doing to make your shop better and bring in more customers? So on that note, you guys have a great Saturday, and we'll catch you here bright and early for the Sunday sermon.